what was the first step that you took? You didn't go immediately into working in the high-tech industry. I'm assuming that you had to get your experience somehow.
I started in a lumber mill.
Yeah, I had a dispatcher one time, and she just didn't do a very good job. And it was a very demanding job, and so I told her it just wasn't going to work, and she didn't want to do anything else, so I had to let her go. And she came back to me about 3 years later, and she found a job back in Indiana and worked for me here in Portland at a much larger level, making much more money at something much more structured for a big national trucking company. She came back, was in town, specifically to come and tell me that, thank me for firing her. It was the best thing that ever happened to her.
I've had this happen many, many times.
Yeah.
And and I've had people work for me for 15 or 20 years, and I've never had a job for more than 5 years. So, you know.
They move with you. We're talking to Chris Duffin, Kabuki Strength. He is the author of The Eagle and the Dragon, a story of strength and reinvention. Let's back up if we can, Chris, from a success perspective. You graduate, you get out of college, and you're 21 years old. It's easy to jump forward. I think everybody always sees the Mercedes, right? They don't know the 40 years of work or the 30 years of work that goes in between. So, I mean, how does somebody, I get asked all the time, how do I start? So you're 21 years old. Pretty soon you're running, rebuilding companies and doing all that. But what's the advice, or what did you do? What was the first step that you took? You didn't go immediately into working in the high-tech industry. I'm assuming that you had to get your experience somehow.
I started in a lumber mill as a supervisor.
Yes.
And you know, it comes down to, think about it as your education. Think about your career as your education. And if you think that in perspective, like I knew very early on at some point I did want to own my own company. And I had conversations through the years with other people that saw me kind of wanting and heading that direction. They're like, why are you doing this? Or friends that wanted to go start. And I'm like, don't. Right now, you're getting the best paid education you can ever get in your life.
Yes.
Okay. And so it's shoring up those skills. Like one friend of mine, he's doing very well for a very large company, Stanley, Black & Decker, all that sort of stuff. He's doing crazy executive stuff for them, and I've known him for a long time. We went to college together, and I talked to him. He was just. I'll get back to me for a second, but this is a good story to articulate.
Okay.
Anyway, he's working as an engineer, and I'm like, man, you need to take the step over. You've got an opportunity right now to get into management. And he's like, well, I can't do that. It pays less. And he's like, plus, I've led projects. I know this stuff up and down. I'm like, no. You may have directed 5 to 6 people, but you have not spent time managing people. You need to do this. And so he made the shift to a lower paying job. And within a few years, he came back and he's like, oh my God, I know why you have me do that now. He's like, I didn't know what I didn't know. Mm-hmm. He's like, I had so much to learn on leadership and management and all these things. And so then the next thing came along, and it's like, okay, here's a career jump opportunity that's basically a plant manager in a larger organization. But the pay rate, again, it's just a semi-step over. And I said, you need to go take that. He's like, well, that's a big job to take for not getting a raise. A lot of responsibility. I'm like, yes, but this is a big corporate company. You've got a general manager of that company who's probably only going to be there for 2 or 3 years max. Okay, he's either going to fail, there's a big corporate world stuff, or he's going to advance, one or the other. So a year and a half later, he's now general manager. The guy failed. Now he's executive in one of the biggest companies in the world. Okay, but how did he get there? It's all about like, I had him chase and do things he didn't want, like
sure. Investing in himself.
Yeah. Like you can keep being an engineer and be topped out at $100,000 a year or 110 or 20, whatever it is now, or make these lateral or even backward shifts to shore up and grow your overall skills, right?
Right.
And so those are moves that I kept making in my career, is putting myself in that. So that first move as a supervisor, coming out of college with a dual engineering degree, you know how many people thought I was freaking insane?
Right.
Because they were making $10,000 more than me, which was a lot of money back in the 90s, going to work for Boeing. And here I am working at a window manufacturer.
Now, did you know you were doing that? Or?
I did. This was a conscious choice.
Okay, this you knew you were doing
this was part of the conscious piece of that was I know that if I get management experience on top of leadership and management experience on top of engineering, I'm going to move further faster.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And then if I combine that with a master's in management or business to buffer that, it's going to add to the credibility, given that I have success in those areas.
Right.
Too many people chase those big degrees like it's going to give them something. It doesn't do anything unless you actually have success in your career. Then it just adds to the credibility of that success.